Hello, welcome to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading Ruth chapter 2. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field, and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came, and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been shewed to me, all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother in the land of thy nativity, and art come into a people which thou knewest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not, and let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up, and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth, and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she shewed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness, the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men, until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz, to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Summarizing Ruth chapter 2. So Naomi has a wealthy male relative. His name is Boaz, and Boaz is related to Naomi through her dead husband Elimelech. Verses 2 and 3. Ruth decides to find someone, some area, uh, a person who will let her gather corn, gather ears of grain. I think I assume that this was corn, but it doesn't necessarily say corn. But she's going to gather crops that can be eaten. She finds a field belonging to Boaz. And Boaz came and he, you know, greets his reapers, the Lord be with you. They answer, the Lord bless you. Then Boaz asks, Who is Ruth? He asked the supervisor of his staff, Who's this woman? And the servant explains she's the woman that came back with Naomi and asked them, can she gather food or gather crops among the other people who are supposed to be gathering crops there? And then Boaz speaks to Ruth directly in verses 8 through 9. He shows kindness to her, inviting her to gather there. And when she feels thirsty, you can drink from the water that the young men have drawn, his other employees. And her response in verse 10 is gratitude. First of all, she wasn't even looking for him to give her anything. And she was grateful when he did give her something. Even though he's capable of much more, she thanked him for what he did. Verse 10, Ruth asks, what got your attention? And Boaz explains that he values her kindness and her loyalty to her mother in law. And he asks her to let the Lord show you kindness. Verse 13, Ruth expresses gratitude and thankfulness again. Verse 14, Boaz invites her to stay for dinner, and she does. Verses 15 through 17, Boaz then instructs his staff in front of her to allow her to gather crops there, and so she did. She ended up leaving with plenty of barley. Then verses 18 through 23, Ruth returns to Naomi, taking the food. Naomi asks about her day, and Ruth tells her about Boaz. Naomi explains that Boaz is a relative, and she's elated at this interaction. Naomi continues to live with Ruth, and she continues to gather crops on Boaz's land. So highlights. 1, Boaz is wealthy, but he's a relative. Sometimes this interaction is taught like he was just some man that came to save her, but they actually were related and were sort of in the same circles. So that's just something to note. He was not just this complete outsider. He wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't looking for a sugar daddy. He wasn't looking for a young woman. They just saw each other. He saw her. Just pointing that out. She wasn't going there to hang out to see if he would find her. She was going there to work. Even after he found her, she still had to work. She was not rescued or married immediately. This situation allowed Boaz to observe her. A man with means, first of all, he's a human. So I personally believe these men still want companionship. They still want like an emotional connection, a human connection with a woman. So he risks getting hurt that way, but he also risks getting hurt or losing his investment when he spends money, when he invites a woman into his life and she's experiencing a lifestyle she couldn't have access to before. He's risking when he allows a woman into his life. So he needs a chance to observe her, to pay attention to her cleanliness habits, her grooming habits, her temperament. Is her personality annoying? Can I deal with her every day? Is she secure? Because if she's not secure, she's going to be really annoying to be around. So I'm going to have to spend a lot of attention on her. 3, her loyalty and her kindness is what made Boaz pay attention to her and be impressed with her. Not one time did this chapter mention her beauty. Not the way the Bible mentions Sarah's beauty or the daughters of men back in the book of Genesis with the fallen angels. They were beautiful. She's not mentioned as being beautiful. Sarah, it was Sarah who made the money and the relationship with Abraham. We have Rachel and Leah. I think her name is Rachel. Rachel and Leah. You see that Jacob didn't have any money. He was running away from his twin brother. He even had to offer God a tenth of his future earnings because he had no money. You know, the chapter with the stairway to heaven, he had no money. It was their father. He was able to work for their father and gain money. So these women that were beautiful, they didn't attract the men with money. Okay, I'm just pointing that out. The women who were stated as being beautiful, they're not the ones who attracted the money. This woman who wasn't mentioned, she's the one that attracted the man with money. And it was through her temperament, it was through her attitude. So, personally, this book, Ruth talks to me, I got more out of it about how a woman needs to be, how her temperament needs to be, what kind of woman you should be if you want to be married, what will get a man's attention. It's not necessarily being beautiful, even though beautiful will get the attention. Those beautiful women ended up being the ones who also provided the wealth, in a sense. Okay. Lastly, what I thought was really cute, verses 15 through 16. This is something that I noticed that men do. When she rose again after the meal, he instructed his young men in front of her. Now, when we look at verses 8 and 9, he already told Ruth personally that she can come there. He showed her the kindness. He told her, he even said, have I not charged the young men not to touch you? So he's already made it clear that Ruth has the permission to be there. But when it gets down here to 15 and 16, he wants to make sure in front of his staff, he wants her to know for a fact that he's the one in charge. And that's something that men do sometimes when they want to impress a woman. They want to make sure you know what kind of car he's got. They want to make sure you know what kind of job he's got, how much money he makes. Sometimes they want to stand close to you to see if they're taller than you with your heels on. Okay, so that was Ruth chapter 2. I love you. Have a wonderful day.